Hello everybody and welcome back to the Quilters Apothecary. Today we are doing the actual quilt out for our wonderful tidal wave border design, and I'm going to go ahead and toss in a medallion kind of as a little bit of a bonus, plus we can kind of hit both of those at the same time using that tidal wave. Now we've drawn both of these in two different previous tutorials. And so now we want to see how they quilt out. First, what I'm going to do is I want to take you down to the quilt surface that we have marked out, and I want to go ahead and show you how I'm going to set this up. So here we have our border marked out and quilted out, and of course we have the top and a little bit of the corner. And of course this would work on all four of the borders. You would just repeat it. You get the point. We've drawn this before and it will make complete sense. So what I've done is I have measured and located the inner border from the inner corner to inner corner, located the center. I put a little bit of a mark there. And then what I did is I measured from the corner to the center, located the half mark. And then what I did, let me grab a ruler to kind of show you, is I simply, once I found that little point there, I used a straight ruler and lined that straight line up on the seam, and then I put my mark up here on the top. Now, let me say this to you. Before I did any of this on that border, what I did was I went around the whole outer edge of the border and I came in 1/4 of an inch and I made a line, 1/4 of an inch in. That way we know where our binding's going to end and where the design is going to start. That's always important with a design like this because I don't want to cut off part of that design, just like when we drew it out. So I've marked the middle. I located the middle between here, put a straight ruler here, and put my mark up here. And then what I did, and by the way, that mark goes on the 1/4 inch in line. Same thing, measured here, which should be the same measurement as this, and it's nice to be able to double check that. Located where that mark was, put my straight ruler here, made sure that one of the lines on the ruler went straight across the seam between the body and border, and then I went ahead and I put my mark here. Now, this is a fairly small border example because we don't need a queen size border to show this quilt out. So if it would have been a wide queen size border, I would have located the middle again there, then located the middle between that, then located the middle between that, just like I kind of showed you on paper. Because obviously if we have something 108 inches across, then we can put more medallions to work inside that particular area. But when we're working in a small area like that, we only have room for so many of the medallions that are perfect offsets. All right, so now, next thing I'm going to do is we are going to start quilting. So the two that I'm going to be using ruler-wise for the quilting, let me grab them over here, is my Tidal Wave 4 and 4.5 because I'm working in such a small space. I find that this works really lovely. And actually, the 4 and 4.5 I find works really well in borders in general because very rarely do you have a border that's like wide, wide, wide. We have some more border type designs that would take the bigger tidal waves, and those will come down the road a few months from now, tutorial wise. But right now we're going to start with this to do that design that we went through in the drawings. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to line this up right in the center. I'm going to have Rich squeeze in on that just to kind of show you that. The half mark here, and notice that I've sprayed my specific adhesive, which we no longer can get anymore. You might use the ruler grip or the handy grip on the back. I'm going to line that up so that my half mark is right on the seam, and then also my very center where that little circle is, that goes right on the center of the border. So that's right there, ready to go. Okay, so that's where that one's going to go. Now I just want to do a little bit of a rehash. So now I'm going to slide over to this inner edge border. Before I even start quilting, I just want to run through a few things. So now on this one, again, there you can see, I'm going to use the quarter, and the quarter is going to hang over into the body of the quilt. My perfect center circle is going to go right on the corner. And so that one will start there. Now, because this is within our throat space, what I'm going to do is I would have already ditched between the body and border of the quilt. When I start quilting, this is where I'm going to start. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to do that. I'm then going to slide and follow the ditch towards the center, stop my machine in needle down position, place my ruler in place, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to quilt the outside of that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to slide over to the right, and I'm going to repeat that same process since there's only 3 on this small border example over in the corner. So here is a quarter of the ruler that's going into the body of the quilt there, and that center is right on that corner. Then I will lock my stitches, and then we'll head up to the top part of the border up here, and we will do that section next. I have my ruler in place. I'm going to bring my machine over here. Pick up thread. Lock my stitches. Hold everything. I'm just double checking to make sure everything looks good there. It looks good. And now I'm going to go right into there. Okay, I'm going to pause. Work my way around. Remember, I have my extended base on. I do have a stabilizer on the bottom of the ruler. That way it's not going to slip on me and give me funny shapes. Shift my hand. Come down to there. Now this is the point when what I could do is I could thicken that line. Come up there. Come down. Come around. Shift my hand. Now I'm going to follow the ditch. Up. And around, but before I do that, I'm going to come back because we're going to add another element to this. We're going to change this just a little bit from our drawing, because why not? And I'm going to grab a marking pencil. I'm going to grab this, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my small hexi. Now in the when we drew this out, what we used is we used a circle, but I'm going to use a small hexi. And what I want to do is kind of figure out, I think I'm going to do point facing up rather than point facing to the side. And again, this is just me wanting to check out a new shape aside from the circle in this particular design. So what I'm going to do now is I lined up the middle. We're going to go in tight it a little bit there. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to line up. This is the center line as we have marked on our shapes ruler. That's right on the seam, goes off there. And rather than draw a line straight across past there, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this point down below, and that's going to go right on the vertical seam line. So I've got that lined up, and now I'm going to go ahead, use my marking tool, and I'm using the thinner tip Bowen because I want a thin mark for this. There we go. Okay, I can see that. Hopefully you can see that. So before I move on to the next one, I've got this marked. While I'm here, I'm simply going to go ahead and get that part done. Okay, pause there. Get rid of my little tail. Get my other ruler out of the way. Ditch ruler in place. Pause. Reposition. Pause. Reposition. And so what will happen as I work my way across the top of the quilt is that I will continue to add this element in there. Now, I could have waited until I was done with the initial tidal wave element to add this, but I didn't want to. So there, nanner, nanner, nanner. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, if we widen our shot just a little bit, because I have some stuff on the back of my ruler to keep things stable, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to set it in place, right? Whether it's the handy grip or some sort of spray that you put on the back of the ruler. Now that's in place. Now I can follow with my ditch ruler right in the ditch that, by the way, has already been ditched. I always want to ditch between my body and border before I even start any design, so I go right to where I need it to be, double check my ruler, make sure that's in the middle, and now what I'm going to do is follow that around. Take your time until you get used to the new ruler. If you're using a new ruler that you're not used to, and that way, as you take your time, you can also see if you did get a little shift, so you can reposition the ruler. I did that a little bit on the one over on the where I started, and didn't catch that until it happened. That's okay, it still looks fine. It's going to work out fine. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to remove that. I'm going to take my hexi. I'm going to put it up. And remember, I said I wanted my point facing up throughout this particular sample, or in this case, it would have been the quilt. Now, I have brown paper, and that's how these rulers come. They come with a little bit of safety paper on the back. I'm going to take that little guy off of there. It's time. I always leave these on until I need to use them. Okay. Okay, so now I put that in place. I'm going to grab a hold of my marking tool, mark that. Just like that. Just checking out something design-wise. See, that's part of the fun too. As you're working, you kind of can check out, I wonder what this would look like. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and we're going to go around that hexi. Again, I'm doing my 1, 2, 3 just to make that a nice bold line that's going to pop. 2, 3. I have my start speed or cruise mode set on fairly slow so I get nice points when I go. Notice when I go into those points, because the cruise is on slow, I get a nice sharp point. And I don't just have it on regular stitch regulator where you can get a long stitch or a bit of a rounded pull. That's why I always love using those cruise type modes, as we've talked about before. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to slide down to the next section. I'm going to place my ruler before I even move my machine. Grab my ditcher. And of course, again, yes, we have our extended base on. We also have our ruler foot on. And I love the fact that this is my older Innova ruler feet, which is nice and tall. And I prefer those to the new Innova ruler feet, which is not as, they're not as deep. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead, head back around, but I'm also going to not just do it and trust. I'm going to keep an eye, make sure that I haven't shifted ruler-wise. Having a little bit of the tape on the back or the whatever you might use to keep that ruler stable on your quilt surface is always a help. Okay, I'm going to move that. Yes, and absolutely, and that's of course our dear Sue and I, when we designed this, those holes used for leverage are really handy. Those make things so much easier. I think the that method when I came up with the handle as well as the holes for other things, that just changed my quilting life, and I know from the responses we've gotten from thousands of you, that and the rulers between the handle or the holes, depending on the size of the ruler, has changed a lot of our lives. I just think it's the right way to go. Okay, so now slide down. Okay, so now if within our throat space we had another one of these that we would be able to complete going down the side, we would have done that. Same thing over there, but of course with this small example, that's kind of where that's going to be. So now the next thing I'm going to do is we're going to slide up to the top, and I'm going to work my way over from the corners. Okay, so now here we are in the upper left-hand corner, which is where I'm going to start and work my way right, which goes with the unspoken law of traveling left to right to protect your timing. So now what I'm going to do is, again, we're going to line this up into the quarter for the corner. Now, the one thing that I want to make sure to say is this. When you do this, I'm not going to take it past that quarter mark. My quarter mark is going to be on that binding line mark that we made. So we measured in 1/4 of an inch. We made a mark. P.S. I am assuming that most people understand that when I say 1/4 inch in, if you're doing 1/2 inch in binding, then you would go to a 1/2 an inch and make a mark. I'm doing 1/4 inch binding. That's what I typically do. So I'm going to go in 1/4 inch, make my mark, and this point right up here where that 1/4 inch intersects in the corner, that is where I'm going to line up my dead center. Now I'm still going to quilt up to the edge of the quilt, which is going to extend that a little bit. But once that binding's on, that's going to give me, of course, that that visual of a full design element in place. It's not going to look cut off and weird. Okay, so now pull up my thread. Again, I'm going to go past that all the way out to the outer edge of the quilt, come back to get my little boulder line. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and I would follow my mark all the way over. But the one thing that I want to add is, as I do that, let me go a little way, and Mr. Ritchie, if you would set that camera up. So here is the mark that I have for where my next element is going to go. And what I'm going to do is I am going to line that up. But remember, my center line, get rid of that string, thread, my center line is going to be on the 1/4 inch in. It's going to be on that where my binding ends. Just like that. So now I am going to hold that in place. This is going to come on over. This is the outer edge of the quilt that I'm traveling on right to the ruler. I double check to make sure that everything's still in place, or put it in place. And I'm going to come back here, follow that around, shift my hands. Again, do my double bold. It's not the thread I would normally be using with this color of fabric, but it's something that I wanted to show. Okay, so I'm back there. Now in the corner I did not put in my hexi, so I want to make sure to do it here, and then when I finish I'll go back and I'll refill that in. Okay, so again, my point is facing inward, just like it did with the others. So I'm going to line that up, but same philosophy. That middle line is on that 1/4 inch in line. So now I'm going to follow that and repeat the same process all the way over. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my 4.5 tidal wave, which is the step up a little bit bigger. I'm going to place that in line, and then what's going to happen is I'm going to get a lovely echo around what we've already done, which is going to give me that lovely negative space that I like so much. So that is how I'm going to handle this. I'm doing the simple but not so simple version of this, as opposed to when we drew out. Again, there are so many options here. You can see, let me turn this one over here. Of course, what I did here was I actually shifted position using the small one and putting another arc in between the cleavage of all of these. I'm not going to do that for this particular video, just because I want to at least get the basics down for you so you can utilize them. So we're going to be using this for the echo. Now on this one, I'm simply going to do my 1, 2, 3 as I go. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And the reason I'm doing that is I want to show you that on this particular shape, I kind of prefer, if it's a straight line or something like that, that 1, 2, 3, I love and it works great. But on something with a lot of curves in this, it's easy to shift that ruler. So it's almost better to do the whole part and then go around it again. And that's why I kind of wanted to show this. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And what I'll do is I'll remove this, okay? And I will have Mr. Ritchie snip, snip, snips. Squeeze in on that. Okay, so now we have that lovely echo around there. And what you see is it's not quite as exact. So on shapes such as this, where there's a lot of rounded cleavage areas and outer areas, what I like to do is I like to go ahead and do the whole thing and then come back for my second line and then maybe travel the ditch of the seam, which I'll do in the next one as we slide over. So at this point, now we have a couple different options. So again, as you can see from the drawing, and I'm assuming that some of you have already done your drawings with the rulers so that you can see some of the different options, but we have some different options. Now on our drawing here, you can see that what we've done is we have our medallions in place where they go, and we've started from the center out and done our piano keys, and that is on the previous tutorial with the border and the tidal wave on how to work that. So you can see that. Again, there are so many different options. I could also do 45-degree all the way out to the corner, or actually from the corner in to the center on both sides. That's another option. Using the pin striping is always good. That just adds a nice touch. Now here we used circles, and I wanted to show another option here where we actually used the hexagon, which is another option. There are a ton more things, and I could even go in here and do maybe even a smaller circle right inside the hexi, which would add another element. Now with this, what we have is we have 1, 2, 3 sections for each of the medallions. This is the point when you get to make the decision of what would you do in here. So for example, you could either fill, and of course we want to do positive, negative, positive. So I could fill this echo, leave this open, and fill the hexi. Or I could fill this inner pedal portion of the tidal wave, and then of course this hexi as well as the echo would be unfilled. So you have two different options there, and of course both of them are great options. And again, out in this outer clear area, there are so many things you could actually do there, and that's stuff that we can cover on quilts down the road, but I wanted to show you the basics of what we would do there. And let me show you what a quilted out version of a filler would look like in the middle there. Let me bring my machine over, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill the second section in, so not the echo and not the hexi. Okay, and I have my, because we're doing ruler work, I have my start speed set at 200. I'm actually going to take that up to 400. Speed that up a little bit. I find that I get much nicer micro work when I do that. There we go. And then we'll go back to the main menu. And because I'm doing micro work, I'm going to go ahead. I've got my stitches per inch at 12. I'm actually going to take my stitches per inch up to 14. Okay. Again, with micro, I'm just going to stick with the basics, do that basic swirl. There we go. Rich can slide in there. Give you a visual on that. Again, we could stop there, but again, what we could do as well is we could make a decision to do something else. I don't know. Let's do something. So let me grab my little blue marks be gone. Okay, I'm gonna grab my little ruler. Let's just wing it. All right, so let's look at this little guy. So we got our hexagon shape in there. That looks lovely. That's awesome. If this were all of them and then you went ahead and did the piano key thing or anything in there, there's, again, you don't even want to know how many cool things I've got in mind for this. And not just using this shape. When we get more into the shapes tutorials and that, we'll be talking a lot more about different things we can do back here that just takes a border to the crazy train mode. Okay, so as I look at this, what I might want to do is to grab my ruler and slide up. Let's say I take it, let's say, yeah, let's go to 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to take that to 3/4. I'm going to put a little line there. I'm going to keep it right in the center there, 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to take, this is my giant 8.5 tidal wave, and I'm just grabbing this ruler because it's handy. What if I were to take that and I were to because I have that center line, just line that up right to the center. I'm not going to go all the way up to that 3/4 inch line. That's going to be the area that I want to hit with my stitching. So I'm going to follow my ditch back. Yes, normally I would be using a ruler. Okay, but now I'm just going to go ahead. We're going to make another element. There's our next element. And now what I'm going to do is we've made that next element. I put my lid on my marks be gone. And let me say this again. When you utilize your marks be gone, these go into a Ziploc bag and they get stored laying on their side horizontally. They do not go in a cup up and down. They will dissipate quickly. That's why people get so frustrated using those. But nice Ziploc bag stored horizontally. So now I'm going to go into this area and put some micro in there. Okay. Let's come back. There we go. So now we have a whole new element which completely changes the look of that. Again, I can keep building this crazy train thing out. I could use my, let me see, which one did I use? I used my 4.5 to do my echoing. I could go right in here and reline that up and put tips right on the outside there. Okay, I'm going to take a chance. 1, 2, 3. This is me taking a chance. Now normally, here's the smart way. We turn the ruler and we travel that ditch so that it matches up well, and then we shift it back. Again, we have these wonderful lines that give you the offset on that ruler, and then you can come down. And actually, I'll thicken that just a little bit because I like it thick, and then add 1, 2, 3. Now I'm just going to wing it. Wing it, wing it, wing it. There we go. 1, 2, 3. Wing it. And so you will get to the point when you can wing it and you can follow that thicker ditch pretty darn dead on. So now let me come down here. Now obviously normally under normal circumstances I would not be traveling that ditch freehand this many times to thicken that thread, but I'm doing this just to kind of show you the ways in which you can play with this medallion if we can get a nice tight shot in there on that and bring that thing to life. That is really cool looking. Love it, love it, love it. And I could actually go up one size. That was our 4.5. We're not going to do it, but I'm just going to grab the 6. And what we could do is to do an echo around each of those nubs, and we kind of did that in our medallion portion of the video. Now, what we're going to do in shapes is, because I know this video is getting pretty long, and I know a lot of you tend to, with the long videos, get a little tired. What we'll do next video for this particular medallion utilizing the waves is we'll mix and match that with some of the different shapes, and that'll be our entry into our shapes series. All right. So what I would like to do, Mr. Ritchie, is I know, now we're going to make them seasick. Go back in and show them this guy again with all of that wonderful work in that medallion. And imagine this as all of our accents that we have there in the border. And now notice the difference in the contrast between this, and then let's go over to this and look at this corner. And you can see just adding a little bit just completely changes it and just brings that to life. So there are so many ways in which we can take a border treatment with these wonderful shapes, no matter what the shape is, and just bring them to life. So I hope you enjoyed. As always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, know you're loved, and we will see you all down the road the next time here at Quilters Apothecary. Goodbye.